I sort of planned this around talking to people that perhaps didn't have very much experience in Vietnam, but I seem to have found a different audience here. But having said that, this will be very much from an equipment supplier's perspective, as distinct from the other views that people have here. So this is just one man's experience, which is mine, and it's very much based on last year's Viet Water, which is the first time we participated with the AWA. I've been to Viet Water a few times in the past, but under different banners. I'd like to thank Trade Victoria for their support at Viet Water and for somewhat generously, but could be more generously, helping us out. And you should just, you know what you need. Disclaimer, don't blame me for anything. Anything I say can't be used against me. And your experience will be different from mine. I'm going to talk about making the most of being at Viet Water, what the water industry I think holds for Australian participants, a little bit on the wastewater industry, what a local presence in Vietnam actually means and what it can do for you, and a couple of anecdotes around some cultural stuff. I've just brought up two little spots there. This is where Akvotek with Hydroscience have put water treatment plants. One of them is the Don Tap plant that Paul was talking about before, and the other one is going into a different province and is in fact being put in by a private water utility. It's a guy that has a contract with the local government water utility to supply water, and it's a completely private funded arrangement. And there's some wastewater plants that Hydroscience have done with our technology in the past. So we do have some experience of doing work in there, but I strongly recommend that you listen to what Paul's got to say, because he really knows the country, and the guy who knows a lot more about it than me is Ken, who will be speaking to you as soon as you get rid of me from here. Making the most of Viet Water. Be on your booth. Don't go wandering around all over the place, even though I'm going to tell you to do that in a minute. But if you're not on your booth, you've paid a lot of money to be there and take advantage of it. Have everything in Vietnamese. If you haven't got it in the local language, you're wasting your time. Don't hand out a business card that doesn't say things in Vietnamese. They're just going to stick it in their pocket and throw it away when they get home. Or the same with your brochures. Even people who speak English, it will always be their second language. So be prepared to spend a few bucks, get things translated and printed. Be part of Team Australia. Paul mentioned before that we actually had an occurrence where I just happened to be having a couple of beers with Bruce Biltoff from Avoca. Mentioned to him that we were there talking to a particular industry where we had some specific expertise in water recycling. It was outside Avoca's business area. As it turned out, a person from a company we didn't know existed needed precisely that product, and they walked onto Avoca's booth. Bruce was able to bring them over, introduce them to me, and we're still talking to them, and that may turn into some quite substantial business for us. So I'm saying be part of Team Australia, learn what the other people on the stand are doing so that you can cross-direct and make sure everyone knows what you do. Make sure they know what a customer of yours looks like, so that we can all benefit from each other's presence there. I should say Team Victoria, shouldn't I, rather than... And make sure you walk around, because not everybody that is of interest to you is going to come to your booth. Make sure you walk around and see everybody else there. And don't overfill the agenda. Paul knows how to stack an agenda, I can tell you. We were pretty damn tired by the time we left Viet Water at the end. But we might actually stack something onto the end day. We might actually organise a little field trip if anybody wants to stick around for an extra day. The Vietnam water market. Vietnam has very well developed and well understood quality parameters for drinking water, and it's important that you learn what they are and that you're able to comply to them. They also have a product registration process, which I get the feeling it's sort of under development, but if you want to sell across the country, you're going to run into whether your products are in fact registered under this program. And I think Paul knows more about it than I do, so perhaps you can talk to him about it later. I certainly will be. A place like Vietnam is not going to go through all of the product and technology iterations that somewhere like Australia or other countries have gone through over the years. They are going to be very much focused on what is the latest, best technology that supplies their lowest whole life cost today. The products that you're selling in Australia, if they're the lowest cost way to treat water in Australia, they probably will be in Vietnam. But make sure they are. One of the things you'll find is that there is a lack of skilled and trained operators. That's going to gradually improve, but if you can have low operator involvement in your treatment processes and be doing things by remote access, it's certainly worth doing. Pressures on the water industry. Groundwater is the major source of water in a lot of Vietnam. It is diminishing, groundwater tables are going down, and all groundwater is controlled by the government. Surface water, for some reason, is not. So surface water abstraction will be the way of the future for a short period of time. Who knows where the regulations will go after that. One of the things you'll find, it can be difficult to get decent power supplies. If you can run stuff on single phase, then you'll find life a lot easier. Surface water is not always in such great condition. This is the intake that we're using at Don Tap. I noticed that Paul actually had a shot of this little ramp thing that goes into the water before, but actually had some guy on it doing his washing. I'm reasonably pleased I didn't see that while I was there, but that is actually about 30 or 40 metres downstream of our intake. The intake sort of just up the top of that corner, and we're managing to generate drinking water out of that with no chemicals, and we're pretty pleased with the way that process is running. Most families are drinking bottled water. Enormous strain on family budgets. You know, the likes of of Nestle have got bottled water out in provinces in places like Don Tap, and we were very pleased to be able to tell them to throw away the bottles, grab a glass, and go and drink water out of the kiosk. There's a lack of trust in treated water because people for generations have been told don't drink the stuff. So it's going to take a while for people to come to terms with the fact that water we're providing is drinkable. And we saw the kids jumping right into drinking the water at Don Tap at the opening, which was very, very pleasing. And it was also good that the micros had come back okay. So I spent a night sweating on what Bruce was going to be telling us about how our micros performed, but they were fine. I'd already drunk the water, by the way. The wastewater industry, inland water discharge limits are actually pretty high compared with Australia, so it doesn't lend itself to high technology solutions. But again, that will be changing. The discharge into the rivers will be being tightened up. The market is unbelievable. It is absolutely massive. As you saw before, about 10% of Vietnam's wastewater is treated, and there are plans to improve that. As an example, there are 12 plants currently planned for Ho Chi Minh City. 2 of them have been built. Total capacity 3 gigalitres a day, and if you want to get into that business, you better be pretty good at large-scale wastewater treatment, because all the multinationals will be there. There's little treatment outside the major cities, but that will come. They've got to run some sewerage before they can collect wastewater for treatment, but all that will come with time. Establish a presence and be ready for it. We've tried to talk recycled water, but we're not getting all that far, even within the industrial environment. But keep an eye on that as well, because there are water shortages in a lot of places in Vietnam. The local presence and competition, we are not alone. If you saw on the first slide that I had up there showing about Viet Water, there was a big Finland pavilion. Other countries you'll see there is Japan, Korea, France, Germany, China, everybody. So you're not going to be able to march in there, with the support of Trade Victoria and the AWA and have things on your own. So be ready to be the best at what you do, or you're just going to be wasting your time and money. There are also plenty of local companies who are pretty good at what they do as well, and it won't take them very long to work out what you do and do it more efficiently than you might. So a few thoughts from me is you've really got to have a local presence. And we are very, very fortunate that we have a tremendous relationship with Hydroscience. They've got offices here in Melbourne and in Ho Chi Minh City. They've got fabrication capabilities, design capabilities. They work to Western standards, and we're very, very fortunate to have a good relationship with them. Ensure that you're building at local cost base. If you're going to be paying $1,000 a day for guys to bolt machinery together, and someone in Vietnam can do it for $30 a day, you're going to be really up against it. Exporting from Australia is tough for exactly that reason. It's hard to maintain the cost base that you need to. So you really need to be thinking seriously about how you're going to construct things to Vietnamese cost base. Locals will try to copy you, and they'll do it pretty well. So be aware of that as well. And design your products for the local environment. Make sure that you've got componentry that can be replaced in Vietnam. Know who supplies into Vietnam. Don't pick a pump manufacturer that doesn't have a distribution business in Vietnam, because you're just lining up equipment that's going to fail. And look for what the local problems are. As we showed you before on the slide showing the raw water source, you need to understand what the water supply is going to be like and what you've got to do with it, what the target is at the end of the day. So you need local solutions for local problems. Just a few little notes on cultural stuff if you aren't experienced in Vietnam. If you're going to Viet Water, stay in District 7 unless you want to spend 2 to 3 hours a day in that. I did notice that the last one, there was a bunch of people who stayed down in District 1. They all looked a hell of a lot tighter than I did. And there are hundreds of hotels in District 7. It's a real expat area. You can stay in any level of accommodation you like, and for about $30 a night, including breakfast, you can actually do pretty well. The food is great. I've never been crooked from eating food in Vietnam. That was a Freudian slip of drinking, because I have been crook under a few circumstances. But remember my disclaimer, so if you get crook eating the stuff in Vietnam, don't call me. The coffee is sensational. Fun fact, Vietnam's the world's second biggest coffee producer. I didn't check that out. I just saw that pop up on a website and thought, oh, that's interesting, I'll put it on there. Get out of town if you can. I don't like big cities much, and Ho Chi Minh is pretty much just another big city. But if you can get out of town, the country is absolutely fantastic. And visit the War Remnants Museum if you get the chance. It's the best place to go in Ho Chi Minh City, and you'll learn an awful lot of stuff that you really don't want to know. And be an ambassador.